Hello, my name is Kian Leong, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build your own planning and scheduling systems without knowing any software coding. If you work in manufacturing or supply chain, you understand the importance of planning, and you're the kind of person who wants to get the process right, then this video is going to be of interest to you. I'm going to show you the one thing that makes it possible to build powerful planning systems really quickly for companies of pretty much any size. And I'm going to prove it to you by giving you 3 ways to demonstrate how you can do it too. Before we start, let me ask you to imagine a scenario. You want to improve the company's planning performance. You want to get better on-time deliveries and customer service, but at a lower level of inventory and cost. But the computer system the company has doesn't support the planning process that it needs. And you need a system that fits the process rather than trying to build your process around somebody else's system. So you decide to build a planning system yourself. On Monday, you talk to users and sketch out a design. On Tuesday, you gather data. On Wednesday, you start developing. And by the end of the week, you have a prototype ready to test. Inside a month, that prototype is tested and ready to implement. Oh, and you did all of this without knowing any software coding or having access to any software developers. Yeah, sounds far-fetched, right? I thought so too. I'm a management consultant, and I spent the first 8 years of my career doing process improvement and factory transformation. You know, like working with people and processes, making systems visual, and driving everything to customer demand. The problem was when it came to planning. You see, my clients were mainly high-mix manufacturing businesses. They had hundreds of finished products, thousands of parts, and tens of thousands of order lines every month. Planning is a pretty data-driven process, and even with the best lean practices, this is too much data to do manually. One option would be to partner with software companies like SAP or Oracle. But that didn't really sit right. You know, I'd be selling somebody else's software for millions of dollars and still getting the feeling the client wasn't getting something that worked for them. Besides, the approval process for $500,000 or more of software could be months, if not years, and the client really needed something that worked faster than that. Then, about 10 years ago, I went to speak at a conference. This conference was in a country far away from the manufacturing hub I was working in. And at that conference, I met a guy who was building planning and scheduling systems for large companies like 3M, Dell, Motorola, but he was doing it using Excel spreadsheets. And at that conference, he taught me something that changed everything when it came to planning, and I want to teach it to you today. Fast forward 10 years and I've built a whole consulting practice out of building planning and scheduling systems using Excel spreadsheets. We build systems in days or weeks, and we've built a whole website to be able to give away and show examples. But the speed of development is not the best thing. The best thing is the flexibility. You see, I believe that any computer system should serve the process rather than having your process serve somebody else's system. This was such a shift to my approach with planning, I ended up partnering up with this guy. His name is Tony Rice, and he founded the Fast Excel development methodology. Since then, we've taken the method a lot further, and now it really is the best practice for developing planning and scheduling systems using Excel spreadsheets. Now, Excel is not that one thing that I talked about. Now, Excel is pretty good at handling large volumes of data without databases and lots of calculations without programming. But Excel is really only as good or as bad as the methodology you use to deploy it. The one thing I learned relates to how we think about planning and apply it to spreadsheets. And it's a human thing, we all do it. It relates to the way that we think in 2 dimensions. Yes, the world is 3-dimensional, but when we think in pictures, and that picture tends to be flat. And when we think about planning, that picture is often a graph or a grid. You know, we have time going from left to right, we have a list of products or parts down the side, and we have some volumes in the middle. This is the picture that people want to see, so they create a report like that. They put their data in this form, they add some calculations, and pretty soon you've got one sheet with a mix of reporting, data, and calculations in it. Now, the problem with this structure is that it's very limiting. It's like a glass ceiling or an invisible barrier that restricts how far you can go. So the one thing that you need to do to develop your own planning systems is to separate out data, calculations, and reporting. First of all, we want to get all of our data straightened out, and we want to do that in the form of tables. Now, software developers might not understand your planning process, but they do understand the power of processing data in tables. And we want to harness that power for two key reasons. Number one is that it's likely that some or all of the data that we need for our planning system is sitting in a database elsewhere. So we want to connect to it. We don't want to cut and paste that data into Excel. We want to use that single source of truth and bring the data in. And if the data is in table form in the database, that's the form we want to use it in our system. Number two is that we're going to have to process thousands of rows of data and do many calculations in a full-scale planning system. When we put data in tables, we can do tens or hundreds of thousands of calculations in seconds, often faster than a typical MRP run. So now we've got our data sorted, arranged in tables, ready to do a series of calculations, and we want to lay those calculations out in a process step by step. Manufacturing and operations people can understand a system process if you make that process transparent. If we do it step by step following alongside the planning process, then it's no longer a black box where people feed data in at one end and not know how the answer comes out at the other. If we do all our calculations step by step in a process, we can develop very quickly but still keep control of the development process. Rather than spending months and months finding the most complex system with all of the bells and whistles, we can start with something that's good enough, test it, make sure it meets that basic specification, and then improve and adapt it later on. So once we've done the calculations in a process, the next step is to create the reports. Now we've got all of the data we need in order to support all of the reports we need. So now we can create reports for different users, and those users only need the output data. They don't need all of the calculations that are built in the system. So what does this look like in practice? Well, here's the data coming into the system using the query template sheets. You can tell that they're query sheets because they're green. Then we have a series of calculation sheets moving across the workbook left to right, performing the process step by step. Then at the end we have the yellow reporting sheets. Now they could be in the same tool like this one, or they could be in a separate workbook. Now here's something else, and this is something that really makes it possible to link it all together and to develop according to this method. In Excel, there's a feature called named ranges, and as you'd expect, that's a name that you give to a range of cells. The key thing is that a named range can be defined using a formula. And if we can use a formula, we can create a dynamic named range. A dynamic named range is one where the range can expand or contract to exactly fit the data that's coming into the system. And we use dynamic named ranges to link together all of these sheets and put it all in a single process. When I first learnt this method, we used to have to create dynamic named ranges manually, but that involved lots of repetitive formula. So we've automated the process, and now you can create dynamic named ranges at the click of a button. We've put this function and much more into our Fast Excel development template. The Fast Excel development template automates the methodology of using Excel to build planning systems and takes care of the coding so that you can focus on the important bits, building a system that fits the planning process you want to apply. You can get the Fast Excel development template for free at our website, production-scheduling.com. It's packed full of functions and features that we use to build powerful planning and scheduling systems of many different kinds. Because there's so much in the Fast Excel development template, we wanted to create a way for people to learn the fundamentals, the basic ideas and techniques so they can get going on their first build. So we've created the Fast Excel development template fundamentals course. This course goes through 8 modules. It covers the overall function of the template plus each of 5 template sheets in detail so that you can understand how the system works. For example, we have the query template. The query template gives us two different ways of connecting into data that might sit in a resident system. One using databases, the other allowing us to use the power of data tables with no database programming required at all. The table template is a really flexible, powerful tool to be able to create those calculation sheets step by step. We have a pivot template. The pivot template, even if you have no experience of using pivot tables, this template brings the power of pivot tables into the method without you having to learn a lot of Excel theory. And the stack template is a really great way of combining multiple tables of data into a single source. Once we've gone through the fundamentals of operating the development template, we then have a live build where I'll take a blank template and build a simple capacity planning tool step by step. We have the video so you can watch over my shoulder as I build it, and we have broken it down into manageable steps so you can follow along and build the same tool too. And of course you get the output tool and the starting template as well as the videos as part of this course. But that's not all I've got for you. Soon we're going to be starting a series of live build classes. The first is the most common planning process for a manufacturing company, material requirements planning. We'll be starting with conventional MRP. We'll have demand coming from sales orders in the forecast. We'll have supply coming from inventory, purchase orders and other supply orders. We'll be throwing it through the bill of materials to create a requirements for material at every level. But we won't stop there. We'll also be looking at what this system would be like if it was more demand driven. We can be setting inventory targets and generating replenishment orders based on targets that respond daily to changes in demand. Now we will build this system step by step, starting from the blank development template, and you'll be able to watch over my shoulder as I explain each of the steps and then break it down so you can follow along. You'll get the finished tool at the end, of course, but the purpose of this class is not to give you a planning system, but to show you how to build your own so you can create a system that fits your process. We're also doing another live build class, which is the Advanced Capacity Planning and Production Scheduling. Now, in the Fundamentals course, we built a simple capacity planning tool. In this one, we're going to go much further. This will allow you to load up with the forecast and sales orders and create total demand and show where the capacity constraints are against all of your work centers in the weeks out into the future. We'll also be able to create a simple short-term production schedule which will use finite scheduling to model the exact progression of each sales order and work order through all of the processes. This way you'll be able to understand which of your sales orders will get to the customer on time. This will also be a live build class. We will teach it every week and you'll be able to ask questions as we explain the steps as we go. We're going to be teaching both of these build classes live every week, and this way there's plenty of chance for you to get your questions answered and ensure that the system that you build is going to fit your process. We're also going to limit participation in the class in two key ways. Firstly, we want everybody to have been through the Fast Excel Development Template Fundamentals course and know how to use the template. This way everybody's starting from the same base position with all of the key ideas. It's also the only training that you'll need in Excel in order to follow along with the live build class. Secondly, we're going to limit the numbers. Now, we've had over 60,000 people download our capacity planning tool, download the material planning tool from the website. But we want a very small group to go through these first classes to ensure that it's interactive and everybody has a chance to make it fit for them. So here's everything you're going to get. You're going to get the Fast Excel Development Template, which is the best way of building powerful planning and scheduling systems using Excel. You're going to get a place in the Fast Excel Development Template Fundamentals course. These are the core ideas and techniques that you'll need to use the template to build your very first planning and scheduling system. As part of that course, we will put it all together and build a simple capacity planning tool step by step, and you'll get the finished tool afterwards for reference. You're also going to get a seat in our live build class, where we build a fully functional MRP system in Excel, and we go beyond MRP to show how to get it demand driven by generating replenishments against dynamic inventory targets. And you're going to get a seat in our advanced capacity planning and production scheduling course. And here we'll build a system that identifies capacity constraints and shows you what action needs to be done in order to relieve them. It will also create a short-term production schedule which will use finite scheduling and show the progression of all of the sales orders and work orders through the process and which ones are going to get to the customer on time. You get all this for one payment of $297. Now, I mentioned the places are limited for good reason. So to help you make the decision today, I'm also going to include access to the Fast Excel Development Method e-learning modules. Now, this is the first e-learning course that I used to fully learn the Fast Excel Development Method. Yes, some of the examples are a little dated. They're using Excel from 10 years ago, but the principles and techniques are as valid today as they were back then. And this is normally a $200 value. And if you order today, you'll get that one included too. So thanks very much for watching. We put this package together because we really believe it's the best way for you to get going on building your own planning and scheduling systems using Excel. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you in one of the classes.